Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Zafira890 here, and welcome to the Great Roblox Outage of October 2021. So, for those of you who may be living under rocks or pushing on with your busy daily schedules and haven't really had a chance to get on and see what all the fuss is about, basically, the whole gist of this whole outage is at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, that's California time, for those of you who aren't really time zone savvy or whatever. Right around that time, Roblox detected a major drop in player numbers. From then on, there's been a whole series of little things, more issues and stuff have kept piling up until we've gone to the point where we are now, where the entire site is shut down. Mobile users can't log in, PC users can't even look at the site, they can't see any login page or anything. I don't know about Xbox or any VR stuff. I don't have any friends that play on those platforms, really. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at now. Is things are shut down, but if you want more information, I will be going over the timeline in just a sec. So at 4 p.m., basically what happened, I'll recover that, major drop in players, mobile users and stuff. Everyone pretty much got kicked off. There were still some users that were still logged in and could still get into games, but a lot of the games weren't really loading. My games, personally, they weren't loading. In order to join any games, I had to find somebody else that was already in a game that had their joins open, that I could just go press join and hop on the server with them. When all of this happened, this was right around the time that Adopt.me got their update, as well as Chipotle's game being released. So there were a lot of rumors about that being the cause of the crash. However, since then, that has been confirmed by Roblox themselves that this crash is not by fault of a single game or any sort of promotion that they're doing. Another suspicion that has come up since then is a DDoS. A DDoS is basically, by definition, it is a cyber attack. It is a distributed denial of service is what it stands for, and basically what happens is this cyber attack, it kind of targets the server, service, network, or website that it is targeting, and it tries to overwhelm the target with way too much internet traffic to the point where this server kind of becomes inoperable altogether. Since then, there hasn't been really any news about what actually it is, but right now that is kind of what everyone's looking at for what's the reason. There's still a bunch of people that's trying to say that, oh, it's Chipotle, or oh, it's Adopt.me's fault, and everybody wanted a burrito. Yeah, that probably had a little bit to do with it. That's normal for events and things like that, to cause some little outages here and there. There's always new players joining and stuff like that. It's to be expected. So after all of that happened, around 5 to 7 Pacific time, the player drop continued to go down. Avatars and assets altogether stopped loading right. Basically what happened is assets that weren't loading, you got a lot of glitchy games, all that. Avatars, instead of loading your avatar, you would load into the basic default blocky Roblox noob. Not in R6 mode though. It is still in whatever setting the game had. So if you were playing a game with R6, you'd get an R6 noob, or if you were playing R15, you get an R15 noob. Or maybe it was R16? I don't know. Either way, lots of noobs. Everyone's noobs. It was a one big giant sea invasion of noobs. And then to top that all off, that was when the chat system started to shut down. People already were starting to notice a little bit of issue with it, but it wasn't a huge deal. Chat system has issues all the time too, so nobody really thought much of it at that point. It was okay, game's having issues, just server issues, whatever, normal, no big deal. What really set people off was when they started to notice the noobs and that they couldn't rejoin their games, and they started crashing, get kicked off. Now, Now, with all of this chaos going on, nobody really heard anything until 8:44 p.m. At this point, status.roblox finally updated to say that the root cause was identified. Whether or not they really identified it, no one really knows. It's been so long. For all we know, they could have updated it and found it, or maybe they thought they had found it, but it wasn't really that, because right after this happened, progress seemed to be gaining a little bit. People were starting to get back in, logged in, back into the game. Some games were loading again. However, that was pretty short-lived. Once people started to get in, some of their avatars were loading, but very much still a lot of noobs and stuff like that. And then a lot of players started to notice that their game data and things like that weren't loading, or it wasn't there. There's no real confirm necessarily on whether or not that game data will still be there once Roblox comes back up. From what I do know, avatars and personal inventory will all be there, game passes and stuff like that. Maybe not. I don't know how exactly that'll work, but for the most part, basic avatar items and a lot of things that people spend a lot of their money with will still be there. But that being said, during all of that, the chat system at that point was completely dead. Nothing was really going through, and then part way through the whole kind of wave of people coming back in and avatars loading, bubble chat started to randomly work. There was still nothing on the regular classic square chat that's usually up in your upper left, but everyone's bubble chat was working, and then that stopped too completely. Occasionally the message would go through, but then it wiped the message out of the system. You'd basically just have an empty clear white bubble above your head if you tried. Sometimes you wouldn't get a bubble at all, but yeah. And then about 1 a.m. to 4 p.m., a.m., 1 a.m. to 4 a.m., all game servers were pretty much all shut down. There was no way to get back into games. People that were on servers or didn't manage to get on servers were kicked off right away. A lot of people didn't really know what was going on. They thought things were getting back up, but that wasn't the case. My guess is it was kind of like a little test to see if things were working better, but they weren't, so they just kicked everyone off to try and save their data and whatever else. And then that's when a lot of the community really started to panic, and this whole sea of posts and everything else of the burritos really started to get popular, and a lot more rumors started to spread. Along with that, a lot of fake posts about Roblox being up and Roblox being dead forever, and when truth is, we don't really know what's going on. Now, around 5 a.m. to 6 a.m., this Discover page, that is when it completely crashed. It wasn't loading thumbnails, it wasn't loading any sort of games. Before this, when people weren't able to load into games, the games were still kind of showing up on the page. Some of the thumbnails weren't showing up, but the titles and stuff were. When the servers were really down, the Popular Worldwide did stop working before that. There were a lot of random games that were in the Popular Worldwide section, a lot of just, I don't know, maybe newly updated, unknown kind of games, I would say. Not really anything a whole lot of people would play. Some of them had some people on the server at the time, but, whatever. So, this next part was around 9 a.m. At this point, I was sleeping. I wasn't really trying to get on. I wasn't worrying about it. Whatever. I need sleep. Basically, from what I had seen, what was happening around this time was some users started to regain access, and they started to load into games. Not many, I think, actually got into the games themselves, but they at least got to the starting screen to load into a server. But most people didn't really get in. A lot of people are still having a lot of trouble logging on. So kind of similar to like back when everything first started, when a lot of people were getting kicked off. At this point, the next update that we had was at 12:48 p.m., so like about lunchtime-ish or so around the main office. Status.roblox updated again to reassure that the team is still working on getting the full site back, that, they haven't abandoned it or whatnot, because, there's so many panic, there's a lot of pressure on the team, there's a lot of posts going around, they're cussing, they're swearing them out, they're demanding refunds and money, and, everybody's just gone off the wall, and it hasn't even, at that point, it hadn't been a full 24 hours, it was getting close, but then, as of 1 p.m. earlier today, the site was closed off completely. Nobody can get on, and that's kind of where we are now. There hasn't really been any updates other than that they're still working on it. There's been like some insider reports that they're going to start trying to test some things out and, kind of like stepping stones, work their way up from there and see if there's anything they can really do at that much to even, I guess, get a little bit of servers on. But the thing is, this isn't a single server issue. This is the whole network. This is the whole website. If this was a single server, you'd still have people online. It would not be full-blown panic worldwide. From what I have heard, China themselves have been having some issues as well. I don't know quite the full extent, not a lot of people from China really interacting with a lot of the American users and whatnot, and a lot of the American users kind of stopped going over to the Chinese site because there were so many reports of account names getting changed and stuff like that. They didn't want to lose their accounts, so. But as of right now, there haven't really been many updates, just we're working on it. Nobody knows what's going on, but cyber attack of some sort is probably the most definite answer at this point. I don't know if it'll be back in the next day or so. From what I can tell, this was definitely seemed pretty planned. The attack hit right as everyone at the main office would have typically, on an average, 5 o'clock work day, people would have been getting off their work, they would have been going home and eating dinner and whatnot, so a lot of these people probably had to get called back to the office just to even work for the day, so, yeah, fun.